innovation and entrepreneurship.
Okay, we literally have 5 minutes and 25 seconds. So I'm going to take the lady with the white shirt. Then I will come back here to the top of the...
Hi, Mehreen Khan from The Times. You reserved a lot of quite harsh words for China's trade imbalances in this WEO. Probably for the first time in a very long time, we've heard the IMF talking about the nature of the Chinese trade surplus. I mean, is that at the behest of the US administration, which is very preoccupied by this? This morning, Scott Bessent, the US Treasury Secretary, said that China is trying to export its way out of its domestic problems and it's hurting the world economy. Do you share that assessment? And going back to the MD's curtain raiser last week, she put up a very striking chart of the state of the renminbi, which would suggest that China is engaging in some degree of currency manipulation to boost that export performance. Would you be urging Beijing's authorities to be taking a harder look at the state of its currency as well?
So on China's external balances, I would refer you first to the external sector report that we produce every year. That's the other flagship that comes out of the research department. The latest iteration was published in July. And that report tries to assess when countries have excessive surpluses or deficits. And that report highlighted that there's been an increase in global imbalances. There's been an increase in excessive deficits and excessive surpluses among different countries of the world. And it flagged 3 of them as having excessive either surpluses or deficits. Excessive surpluses were found in China, as you point out, also in the euro area, and excessive deficits in the US. So I think we had a report that was very even-handed. Now, in terms of the economic issue on China's growth model, I think what I highlighted in my opening remarks, and I think that's certainly the view that we have here at the fund when we do our analysis of the Chinese economy, is that you have an economy where domestic demand has been very weak for some time now, has been very weak on the back of a property sector boom-bust that has not been fully resolved. We're 4 years plus in, and that property sector is not fully resolved. The real estate sector is still not recovered, and there are still a lot of potentially non-performing loans and valuation effects that are not realized in that sector. And that's weighing on confidence. Chinese households and businesses are reducing, scaling down their consumption or their investment because of that. So the growth in the Chinese economy in the last few years has been coming in significant part from the external sector. But what we are seeing there is something interesting, which is we see an increase in volumes that are being produced, but we see increasingly a decline in the prices at which they need to be sold on markets. And that suggests that somehow the market has a limited capacity to absorb all of that is being produced coming out of China. And that suggests that that growth engine, that second growth engine itself is starting to face difficulties. So our advice to the Chinese authorities has been for some time now, it's been for many years, if you look back at our Article 4, there is a need to rebalance the growth model towards a sustainable domestic demand. And there are a number of steps that can be implemented to do that, and some of them I'm sure will be covered in the regional briefing, but that would pivot the economy away from being too heavily reliant on an export sector that is becoming more fragile in the environment we're in, and a more resilient domestic growth engine.
Okay, I'm going to try to squeeze one last question. We only have 1 minute and 27 seconds. I'm going to go with the lady with the glasses. And this is the last question. Don't get frustrated. There's going to be many opportunities to ask questions.
Hi, good morning. Camille Shikoya with the Africa Bazaar magazine. Could you provide updates on Africa? And I know a lot of the news this morning has been sort of gloomy. Could you give us any highlights, spots on the continent that are doing great? Thank you.
Let me turn this to Denise.
Okay, I'll give you an answer in 50 seconds, but as Jose said, I'm sure our African department colleagues will be happy to elaborate further on that. So for sub-Saharan Africa, we had growth upgraded, actually. Growth projections for 2025 are up by 0.2 percentage point, and same goes for growth in 2026. So we have 4.1 projected this year and 4.4 next year. And this resilience of the region has been supported by macroeconomic stabilization as well as reform efforts that's been going on, including in key economies such as Ethiopia and Nigeria. That doesn't mean that there are no vulnerabilities and there are no challenges, especially the resource-intensive and conflict-affected countries are facing significant headwinds, and based on our medium-term outlook also, we do see certain challenges coming, and we do believe that the low-income economies, including in sub-Saharan Africa, are facing challenges in terms of the per capita income gap with their advanced economic peers widening as we go. And the thing to do in such an environment is going to be turning a little bit inside, as Pierre-Olivier was saying, strengthening institutions, further doubling down on the reform efforts, including revenue mobilization through tax reforms, and strengthen debt management, including debt transparency and governance, and doing other structural reforms that could unlock the potential of the region. Let me stop there.
Okay, I think that we did achieve a soft landing. So, as I said, there will be a lot of opportunities to keep asking questions during the week. And on behalf of Pierre-Olivier, Petia, Denise, the Research Department, and the Communications Department, we thank you all for attending this press briefing. A couple of reminders. The next press briefing is going to happen in this exact same room for the Global Financial Stability Report. Tomorrow we have the Fiscal Monitor, and later on the week we have the press briefing from the Managing Director and all those regional press briefings we've been mentioning during this press conference. So thank you. Any comments, feedbacks, media@imf.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Elon Musk is a visionary entrepreneur leading innovative ventures in technology, space exploration, electric vehicles, and renewable energy. Musk was born on June 28, 1971 to a South African engineer and his mother, a Canadian model and nutritionist in Pretoria, South Africa. His talents for computers and entrepreneurship emerged early, and at age 12, he created and sold a video game. Musk studied physics and economics at Queen's University and the University of Pennsylvania. In 1995, Musk founded Zip2, sold to Compaq for $307 million. He also co-founded X.com, which became PayPal, acquired by eBay for $1.5 million in 2002. Driven by a vision for humanity's multiplanetary future, Musk founded SpaceX in 2002, developing affordable rockets to support International Space Station mission and NASA's Artemis program. He became a major investor in Tesla 2004, launching electric vehicles like Roadster, Model X, and Model 3. Tesla unveiled the Cybertruck, beginning deliveries in 2023. Musk acquired X, formerly known as Twitter, in 2022, aiming to enhance future and transparency. Musk has at least 12 children from multiple relationships, including Justin Wilson, Tallulah Riley, Grimes, and Siobhan Zilis. Through SpaceX, Tesla, and other ventures, Musk shapes technology and innovation globally, and his influence extends beyond business into politics and culture.
Eko Atlantic has become Nigeria's most sought-after city for its high-end infrastructure, prestige, and well-planned city layout, as reflected in an 8-lane boulevard, about 13 internal bridges, underground cables, and green footprints defined by over 30,000 trees. Additionally, having a building in the city has become a trend among the so-called big boys, as was the case with Old Ikoyi, Victoria Garden City, popularly called VGC, Osborne Foreshore, and now Banana Island. In this special report, Bayo Olaoye states that this talk of "I belong" and the prestige mentality has also spread to the big firms. Before now, Kingsway and Ozumba Mbadiwe used to say that Victoria Island were the go-to locations for high-rise office buildings. These locations are home to iconic developments such as Kingsway Towers, Heritage Palace, Fanfa Towers, the Wings and the Waves, among others, making them Nigeria's equivalent of Silicon Valley. The Eko Atlantic City was modeled after the skyscraper district of Manhattan Island in New York City. It has become the new destination for big-ticket corporate firms which are building or relocating their new headquarters to the 10-square-kilometer city, rising off the coast of the Atlantic Ocean in Lagos. The city is attracting investment interests in both residential and commercial real estate, the latest being MTN Nigeria, preparing to build a new headquarters. MTN is coming on the heels of First Bank, which recently turned the turf to build a 40-floor corporate head office, making the city's most iconic development so far. Prior to this courageous and ambitious entry into Eko City by MTN, First Bank, Dangote Group, and the Embassy of the United States of America have taken positions there, developing a new head office and a diplomatic facility respectively. Much earlier, a co-development company had occupied the city as the developer of the Azuri Towers, offering both residential and commercial facilities for high clients and corporate bodies. Arkaland Property Investment and Oak Homes are also in the city, developing A&A Towers simultaneously. These are the residential developments that will be standing on the 22nd floor and the 33rd floors respectively. Other developments are the Pan-African Towers by Periwinkle Residences, Eco Pearl with Champagne Tower and Eco Pearl Black Tower, Amni Towers and Ani International Petroleum Development Company, and Louisville Towers by Total Energy Staff Cooperative and Multipurpose Society. Louisville will comprise 300 residential homes spread between 2 towers, a world-class sporting center and a club, retail outlets, and other facilities. It is designed to employ modern technology to achieve smart living and high standards. Eko Atlantic is an exclusive luxury city with superior infrastructure that appeals to the kind of investors we have seen in the city so far.
At the core of what makes us human is our ability to pay attention, be present in our experiences, and channel our thoughts and actions towards meaningful goals. However, for individuals with ADHD, which is considered a neurodevelopmental disorder, a medical condition that affects the brain, this fundamental aspect of human nature is often disrupted, leading to difficulties in maintaining focus, controlling impulses, and regulating behaviors.
This hyperactivity disorder is a neurodevelopmental disorder that occurs in children and adolescents. It's a problem that has to do with brain development and the brain function. And the ADHD symptoms range from inattention, impulsivity, and hyperactivity. They may be very restless, fidgeting, and they're always on the move. and sometimes they may be climbing, jumping from here and there, that they may injure themselves in the process.
Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD, is one of the most common mental disorders diagnosed in children, though it can persist into adolescent and adulthood. The history dates back to 1798, when a Scottish doctor, Sir Alexander Crichton, observed that some individuals were easily distracted and unable to focus on their activities as others could. He noted that these symptoms often began early in life, which is consistent with what we now recognize as ADHD. The disorder typically manifests between the ages of 3 and 6, with symptoms such as difficulty in focusing, excessive movement inappropriate to the setting, and impulsive actions occurring without forethoughts. This ailment affects people of all ages, though most commonly diagnosed in children. The average age of onset is around 7 years, with symptoms significantly impacting various aspects of life. Approximately 5 to 10 of children worldwide are affected, with the highest prevalence rates observed in Africa at 8.5% and South America at 11.5%. Variations exist across different countries, with lower rates in Japan and Finland and higher rates in Jamaica and Thailand. In the United States, about 7% of children are diagnosed with this disorder, reflecting an average of prevalence globally.
Differentiate between ADHD and other developmental disorders. It starts with comprehensive assessment. And when I talk about assessment, I mean assessment by child psychiatrists, assessment by child psychologists, and other professionals in the mental health team. And of course, there are some basic symptoms that are very clear and obvious. The clinical presentation, when you see a child that is hyperactive, that is impulsive, that is inattentive, that itself can give you a clue that that child may be having ADHD symptoms. And again, you also take further history. You may need to take, if there's a family history of ADHD in the setting, because if there is a family history of ADHD, the child may come up with ADHD in the nearest future.
Individuals affected faces challenges that extend into academic performance, work or personal relationships, and social domains. Some of the signs include constant fidgeting, impulsiveness, and difficulty completing, alongside emotional struggles such as mood swings, low self-esteem, and frustration.
The diagnosis is made following a comprehensive assessment, and you also do some basic psychological investigations, and of course, by combining the report from the child psychiatrist and the child psychologist, you'll be very comfortable to make a diagnosis. And of course, I must say that there are some childhood disorders that may mimic ADHD, like learning disability, like autism spectrum disorders. But the symptoms of ADHD are so very obvious that when you see a child that is hyperactive and oftentimes restless, oftentimes impulsive and unable to follow instructions, that should give you a high index of suspicion that that child may be struggling with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
While it's not a physical ailment like a broken bone, it is a real condition that is frequently accompanied by other conditions such as major depressive disorder, anxiety, substance abuse, learning disabilities, conduct disorder, and oppositional defense disorder, which complicates the management and treatment of the disorder. Treatment for ADHD typically involves a combination of medical, therapy, and behavioral interventions. Stimulants are also the most commonly used, with 70 to 80% of children experiencing symptoms relief. Cognitive behavioral therapy, anger management, and family therapy are key in managing symptoms, along with educational interventions that enhance coping strategies and organizational skills. While these treatments help manage ADHD, they do not cure it, highlighting the need for ongoing support and personalized care. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD, is a complex condition with far-reaching effects on behavior, cognition, and emotional well-being. Continued research and effective treatments are vital in helping those affected lead fulfilling lives and contribute meaningfully to their society. Grace Komolafe, SOUQ News TV.
Lateef Jakande. Born Lateef Kayode Jakande in the Ekpetedo area of Lagos Island, Lagos State on July 1929. He studied at the Lagos Public School at Enwawa, Lagos Island, then at Bonham Memorial Methodist School, Port Harcourt, King's College, enrolled at Ilesha Grammar School, where he edited a literary paper called The Quarterly Mirror. Jakande began a career in journalism in 1949 with a daily service and joined the Nigerian Tribune in 1953. The owner, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, appointed Jakande editor-in-chief of the Tribune in 1956. Jakande established John West Publications in 1975 after leaving Tribune and began to publish the Lagos News. He served as the first president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, NPAN. Jakande ran for election as executive governor of Lagos State in 1979 on the Unity Party of Nigeria platform. His administration was effective and open and implemented the cardinal policies of his party. He introduced housing and educational programs targeting the poor, building new neighborhood primary and secondary schools, and providing free primary and secondary education. He gave poor people's children education, and many of them are now very prominent in the society today. Jakande established the Lagos State University and constructed over 30,000 housing units. After the military takeover in 1983, Jakande was charged, prosecuted, and convicted of treason and later pardoned. He served as Minister of Works under the Sani Abacha military regime. He died in Lagos on February 11, 2021. Lateef Jakande was the first civilian governor of Lagos State. Lateef Kayode Jakande, SOUQ Enlightenment.
A very good afternoon to you and welcome to the World News. We are reaching you live from our studios at SOUQ News TV. I'm Oyin Priye Krumale. Let's begin with today's top stories. President Bola Tinubu said it has raised total upstream investment commitments in Nigeria's oil and gas sector to over $8 billion since inception. The federal government promises renewable energy investment commitments of $400 million to strengthen Nigeria's clean energy value chain. And the Central Bank of Libya authorizes the printing of $11 billion to ease persistent liquidity shortages. A United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warns that ongoing economic shutdown hurts United States economy. And in the world of sports, Confederation of African Football has confirmed that Morocco will host the African Playoff Tournament to determine the continent's final qualifier for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The federal government has revealed plans to finalize over $400 million in renewable energy investment commitments within the next 2 days to strengthen Nigeria's clean energy value chain. Vice President Kashim Shettima made this known on Tuesday at the inaugural Nigerian Renewable Energy Innovation Forum 2025 in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, noting that the initiative is designed to boost local production and innovation in the renewable energy industry. It said the new investments secured through the forum's engagements will support the establishment of solar panel assembly plants, smart meter production lines, and battery storage and recycling facilities in several states. The initiative aligns with the government's agenda to promote energy transition, expand access to affordable power, and create green jobs through private sector-led growth. Now, President Bola Tinubu has welcomed Shell's $2 billion final investment decision on the new gas development project in the shallow offshore in the high fields located in oil mining lease OML 144. The non-associated gas project is expected to produce about 350 million standard cubic feet of gas per day from 2028, nearly 1/3 of the gas needed to power Nigeria LNG Limited's Train 7 project. The development marks a major step toward expanding domestic gas supply and boosting Nigeria's energy security. According to the President's Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, the project raises total upstream investment commitments in Nigeria's oil and gas sector to over $8 billion since Tinubu's assumption of office in 2023. The administration says this reflects growing investor confidence driven by ongoing reforms and policy stability in the energy industry. Now, the federal government has blamed the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, for delaying the release of 50 billion naira meant for the revitalization of the public universities. The Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, stated this on Monday during an interview with newsmen. Alausa said most of ASUU's long-standing demands have already been addressed by the Tinubu administration, including issues related to welfare and infrastructure funding. He maintained that the union's internal bottlenecks and lack of cooperation were slowing down the implementation of agreed reforms. He further dismissed allegations that the government has been unresponsive to ASUU's needs, noting that consistent dialogue and engagement have been signed and sustained since the beginning of the administration. According to him, the government remains committed to improving tertiary education, but requires ASUU's collaboration to achieve timely progress, according to reports. The Nigerian Customs Service recorded 658.6 billion naira in revenue in September 2025, reflecting the impact of ongoing reforms to improve trade efficiency and curb revenue leakages across the ports and borders. The Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Malam Lanre Isa Onilu, disclosed this at a monthly National Joint Security Press briefing in Abuja, organized in collaboration with security, paramilitary, and regulatory agencies. Issa Odilu said the record reforms and performance demonstrates growing efficiency, transparency, and stakeholder confidence under the leadership of Comptroller General Adewale Adeniyi. He added that the customs digital reforms and enhanced interagency coordination continue to strengthen revenue collection, boost trade facilitation, and support the government's fiscal sustainability efforts. The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority has cautioned domestic airlines against extending the refund period for cancelled or unused tickets beyond the legally permitted timeline. The regulatory body condemned reports that some airlines were imposing a 4-week waiting period for refunds, calling the practice a direct violation of aviation rules. According to the NCAA spokesperson Michael Achimogu, the current regulations clearly stipulate that passengers must receive refunds within 14 days of submitting a formal request. He stressed that the refund policy outlined in Part 19 of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority Regulations 2023 is expected and binding on all operators. Achimogo reiterated that the NCAA will not tolerate arbitrary practice that undermine passenger rights. He urged airlines to comply strictly with refund regulations or face appropriate sanctions. The authority reaffirmed its commitment to protecting consumers and ensuring fairness and accountability in Nigeria's aviation industry. Nigeria requires about 22 million metric tons of rice annually to satisfy domestic consumption, according to the Minister of State for Agriculture, Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi. Speaking during a public hearing on 3 agricultural bills organized by the House of Representatives Committee on Agricultural Production and Services, the minister disclosed that the country currently produces around 20 million metric tons, leaving a shortfall of about 2 million tons. He stressed that sustained investment and consistent funding of the agricultural sector are essential for boosting rice yields and bridging the production gap. Abdullahi added that increased mechanization, improved seed varieties, and better irrigation systems would be key to achieving self-sufficiency and reducing reliance on imports. A founder of the Dangote Group, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, has urged policy makers and stakeholders not to use the cry of monopoly as a weapon against indigenous investment and industrial development in Nigeria. He said the focus should be on building policies that drive productivity, innovation, and fair competition. Speaking at the 2025 inaugural Annual Downstream Petroleum Week organized by the House of Representatives Committee on Petroleum Resources Downstream, Dangote, represented by the Group Chief Strategy Officer of Dangote Industries Limited, Aliyu Suleiman, stressed that no investor is prevented from entering any sector of the economy. He noted that Nigeria needs to support its local entrepreneurs to scale up and compete globally, rather than weaken them through unsubstantiated monopoly claims. According to him, a balanced approach that rewards efficiency and encourages multiple players will help achieve sustainable economic growth, according to reports. Now, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, Ikberikbe Ekpo, has intervened in the ongoing scarcity of liquefied petroleum gas, commonly known as cooking gas, vowing to sanction marketers and found hoarding or orders or exploiting consumers. Ekpo assured Nigerians that the government is committed to restoring stability in the gas market and protecting citizens from unfair pricing practices. His intervention follows widespread complaints from retailers about sharp differences between the prices offered by the Dangote refinery and those charged by off-takers before the product reaches consumers. This disparity has reportedly contributed to the rising cost of cooking gas across the country. It will be recalled that Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, had previously threatened to distribute cooking gas directly if distributors fail to cooperate in reducing the prices. The minister's warning signals the government's readiness to act against market manipulations and ensure affordability access to essential energy resources. You're still watching the World News live on SOUQ News Television. We're going to break. We'll be back in a moment. Do stay with us.
In Africa, and there's one man who has consistently been a household name and index of reference in the business arena. The name Aliko Dangote apparently stands tall. The Africa's richest man clearly benchmarks success, wealth, and prosperity. His unofficial love and passion for business are quite phenomenal. These can be traced to his background. Born in April 10, 1957 to Maria Sanusi Dantata and Mohamed Dangote, his maternal ancestors were prosperous caravan traders under British colonial rule, and his grandfather, Alhaji Sanusi Dantata, was a commodity trader. Dangote's grandfather was heavily involved in his upbringing and helped ignite his entrepreneurial spirit. For Dangote, one will ever assume his wealth was handed out or easily channeled. Being an offspring of Dantata, for his success didn't come through daydreaming. Dangote complemented inherited fortune with deliberate hard work and innovation to pave his way to the top. Those who knew Dangote while growing up would not be surprised at his outstanding success. At age 8, Dangote uses pocket money to buy sweets, which he and others sell for a profit. Everything big in life starts from little. Taking a clue from this, Dangote, from a seed loan of 500,000 obtained from his uncle, started business, which he traded commodities and business supplies, primarily cement. By 1981, his firm was successful that he had incorporated other businesses and established the Dangote Group. His empire extended to foodstuffs, including sugar, salt, wheat, cement, haulage, and other business concerns. Among his holdings were Dangote Industries, Dangote Bale Nigeria, Dangote Cement PLC, Benue Cement Company PLC, Dangote Sugar Refinery PLC, Dangote Flour Mills, and Nascent Ally Industries PLC. In addition to his holdings in Nigeria, the Dangote Group has operations in several African countries. With these giant strides in the business arena, Dangote will forever be grateful to his grandfather for giving him wings to fly. According to Forbes, an American business magazine, Dangote remains the richest man in Africa with an estimated fortune of $13.9 billion. Dangote is one Nigeria, highly decorated with honors as well. His urine service and huge investment also got him both local and international recognitions, like the Guardian Man of the Year in 2015. He won the 2016 African Business Leader Award organized by the African American Institute. Dangote was cited as one of the top most influential Africans by the New African magazine in 2015, 2017, 2018, and 2019. He was recently conferred with the prestigious award of the National Order of the Lion by the President of Senegal. When it comes to breaking jinx, Dangote has it in full measures. He took his pioneering and jinx-breaking adventure to another dimension with the unveiling of the $20 billion refinery, widely adjudged as the largest single-train petrochemical refinery in the world. The refinery has the total capacity of 650,000 barrels of crude oil per day and is expected to earn as much as $21 billion in annual income. Situated on 2,500 hectares site at the Lekki Free Trade Zone, Lagos, it is supplied with crude oil by the largest subsea pipeline infrastructure in the world. When fully in operation, the refinery will provide 135,000 permanent jobs in the region, When it comes to family life, Dangote seems to, however, prefer maintaining a low profile. He got married to Zainab in 1977 but divorced at an unknown date. He was later married to Maria Mohammed Rufai. Dangote has 3 daughters named Halima, Maria, Fatima, and he also adopted a son named Abdurrahman. Dangote is one grounded authority that combines real intelligence with self-effacing demeanor, a persona that naturally makes kindness. Like an eagle, Dangote's foresight and unusual business acumen make him a rare to come by. Though he owns chains of business in Nigeria and across Africa, the quest by this uncommon risk taker to conquer more business territories may not wane anytime soon.
Welcome back, many thanks for joining us on the World News. Now, the Central Bank of Libya has authorized the printing of 60 billion Libyan dinar, about $11 billion, to ease persistent liquidity shortages. So far, 25 billion dinar have been distributed to banks, while 14 billion dinar still being expected to arrive the country by end of 2025. The remaining 21 billion dinar will be imported in 2026. The bank said the new banknotes will be delivered in stages according to an approved plan, though it does not specify who will handle the printing. Despite Libya's significant oil wealth, many residents still face cash shortages and must queue at banks to access funds. Last year, the bank reached a deal with De La Rue to print 30 billion dinars as part of this larger issuance. Recently, 47 billion dinars were withdrawn to stabilize the currency, including 10 billion in unrecognized notes, which intensified pressure on the financial system. Since 2014, Libya has been divided between the rival Eastern and Western administrations, with competing claims over key institutions, complicating monetary policies and economic stability. Now, South Africa's business confidence strengthens in September, reflecting a more positive economic outlook, according to South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Its business confidence index climbed to 121.1 from 120.0 in the month of August. The rise was largely driven by a robust tourism sector, higher precious metal prices, and stronger export performance. This marks the third consecutive increase, underscoring improved economic momentum despite global uncertainties. The chamber noted that the year-on-year activity has shown a clear positive trend, while month-on-month growth remains stable. However, external factors continue to influence the outlook. South Africa is currently in discussions with the administration of Donald Trump to ease a 30% tariff imposed on its exports to the United States in August. The South Africa Chamber of Commerce and Industry emphasized these trade measures have not yet fully impacted economic data that could shape the months ahead. Despite these headwinds, business sentiment remains resilient, supported by strong commodity demand and the increased international interest in South Africa's tourism sector. The latest index readings suggest cautious optimism for sustained growth, according to reports. Now, Ethiopia has reaffirmed its commitment to reaching a sustainable debt solution with its international bondholders despite recent negotiations ending without an agreement. The discussions are part of the G20 Common Framework aims to restructure the country's sole international bond, which defaulted in 2023. Authorities said significant progress has been made and expressed optimism that talks would resume soon to support the country's economic recovery plan. Bondholders had proposed a value recovery instrument that would allow them to recoup funds of Ethiopia's export sector and perform well in the coming years. This approach reflects a growing willingness on both sides to explore creative solutions. The government continues to emphasize stability, transparency, and long-term financial sustainability as key goals. Although negotiations have temporarily stalled, both parties remain open to further engagement. Marked reactions have also been measured, with the bond maintaining strong value, signaling confidence in an eventual delay. Successful restructuring is expected to ease the fiscal pressures and strengthen Ethiopia's investment outlook, according to reports. Now, Pobaya Yudi Sadewa, Indonesia's new finance minister, has projected stronger capital inflows and a firmer rupiah as economic growth accelerates in the fourth quarter. The government expects GDP to grow by 5.67%, growing by year on year, up from 5.12% in the second quarter, supported by a fresh stimulus package aimed at boosting domestic activity. This builds on a $1 billion program introduced in September to strengthen households' spending and create temporary jobs. Now, despite recent currency weaknesses, authorities believe that renewed investor confidence will stabilize the rupiah as growth improves. The government is also preparing to issue its first DIM sum bonds to help finance the fiscal deficit, which stood at 1.56% of GDP in the first 9 months of 2025. These measures are part of a broader strategy to maintain fiscal credibility while supporting recovery plan. Pobaya emphasized that Indonesia's budget remains adaptive and credible, striking a balance between immediate economic stimulus and long-term sustainability. Analysts said that the outlook signals renewed investor interest and stronger market confidence heading into year-end. Now, South Korea says it has achieved a major progress in trade negotiations with the United States after Washington eased its demand that Seoul make the entire $350 billion investment package in cash. The deal reached in July had caused concern in Seoul over potential foreign exchange pressure and risk to the domestic currency market. Finance Minister Koo Yeon-cheol described the development as huge progress, noting that the new understanding allows for both parties to mix the loans and the guarantees and phased investment instead of full upfront payment. South Korea has argued that a massive cash outflow would destabilize the won and disrupt the country's financial balance. The European Union officials have called for a firm response to China's latest export restrictions on rare minerals critical to chip making and high-end technologies. The move has raised fears of renewed supply chain disruptions and heightened geopolitical tension over control of strategic resources. The Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen, speaking as chairman of the European Union's rotating presidency, said the member states must act decisively to project and protect Europe's technological and industrial competitiveness. The minerals under restriction are essential for producing semiconductors, electric vehicles, and renewable energy systems. European policy makers are now considering coordinated trade measures and potential partnership with alternative suppliers in Africa and Australia to reduce dependency on China. The European Commission is expected to discuss possible countermeasures at its next mineral meeting later this week. Talks between both sides are continuing at the working level, and Minister Koo is expected to meet United States Treasury and the Secretary Scott Bessent in Washington, D.C. This week. Seoul aims to finalize the revised investment framework before President Donald Trump's scheduled visit to South Korea for the Asia-Pacific Summit later in October this month. Now, Japan's Finance Minister Katsunobu Kato has called for a new economic strategy to address the country's changing conditions, noting that inflation rather than deflation is now Japan's main concern. Speaking at a regular press conference on Tuesday, Kato said that Japan's current realities differ significantly from the period of the Abenomics. The stimulus-driven economic reforms introduced in 2013 by former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to revive growth through monetary easing, fiscal stimulus, and structural reforms. Kato stressed that the policymakers must adapt to the evolving environment where rising prices and global economic uncertainty are reshaping Japan's fiscal priorities. Analysts said that the government may now need to balance inflation control with support for households and businesses, marking a key policy shift from the deflation and fighting era that defined much of the past decade. You're still watching the World News at 3. We're going to break. We'll be back in a moment. Do stay with us.
Fellow Nigerians, did you know that constituency and executive projects in your communities are not gifts from your legislators? They are projects sponsored by the legislators and funded by the federal government to improve your life and the lives of those around you. These projects belong to you. Without your vigilance, they might never be completed. Don't allow them to fade away into unfulfilled promises. Stand up, take ownership, monitor their progress, demand accountability, and report concerns to ICPC. Call our toll-free line now on 0800-2255-4272 or WhatsApp only on 0806-656-4726. This message is brought to you by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, with support from MacArthur Foundation and the Center for Democracy and Development in Africa, CDD.
From Dubai to Lagos, Nigeria, and across the globe, SOUQ News TV is your #1 station focusing on business, economy, and development. With global digital reach, we connect Africa's pulse to the world stage. Welcome to SOUQ News Television, and here we go beyond the headlines. From breaking news, in-depth conversational programs, to market analysis and indices. From policies affecting growth to unique documentaries, from live event coverage to bespoke productions, we deliver content that connects you to the world. At SOUQ News Television, we provide news surrounding business, economy, and development, infomercials and jingles that stand out, short and long-form documentaries crafted to international standards, independent production spaces with full technical support, special coverage for individual and corporate events, a special form of documentaries through our prestige package, Immortals, where we tell your story the way you'd love it, and business support services tailored for small enterprises. SOUQ News TV, powered by FemWatch Limited, also home to the Isle 95.9 FM Lagos and Kasua 99.7 FM Kano, and Emirate News Television Abuja, together forming Africa's trusted media powerhouse. Storytelling, coverage, and connection that matters. SOUQ News TV, your home for business, economy, and development.
The National Theatre, Igomu, built during the military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo and finished in the time for the Second World Festival of Black Arts and Culture, FESTAC, in 1977. The theater holds amazing treasures and memories. The artworks fill everyone with pride. The National Arts Theatre is visible from the motorway which connects Lagos Island and the mainland. The National Theatre is packed with the artworks of a legendary contemporary Nigerian artist, stained glass walls by Yusuf Grillo, sculptures and murals by Lamidi Fakeye, Erabo Emopai, and many others. It was put to full use for a month as one of the 4 venues of the Second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, tagged FESTAC 77. The complex hosted 16,000 participants from 56 African countries and the diaspora in an unprecedented showcase of African music, fine art, literature, drama, dance, and religion. The National Art Theatre was built and designed by Techno Expert Stroll, a Bulgarian company mirroring the Palace of Culture and Sports in Varna, Bulgaria. Completed in 1976, the building is one of the largest and most beautiful of its kind on the African continent. It consists of a central hall with 5,000 seats, a collapsible stage that can be quickly rebuilt, a conference hall with 1,600 seats, 2 large exhibition halls, and 2 cinemas with 800 seats each. The theater complex has a dressing room for artists, a garage, offices, coffee bars, and a buffet. It has indoor TV and radio systems, as well as booths with facilities for simultaneous translation of languages and hectares of large green lawn around. The majestic structure sits in Igomu like a quiet mountain, mesmerizing visitors and passers-by. The National Theatre, SOUQ Enlightenment.
Welcome back. Many thanks for joining us on the news. Now, the United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has warned that the ongoing federal government shutdown, now in its 13th day, is beginning to impact the nation's economy. According to Bessent, the effect of the closure is spreading beyond government offices and starting to weigh on economic activities, with disruptions in several sectors, including transportation, public services, and federal government contracting. Analysts says that the prolonged shutdown is likely to affect consumer spending and delay key economic data releases, creating uncertainty for business and investors. Thousands of federal workers remain without pay, while several agencies have scaled down operations. Economists have cautioned that if the deadlock continues, the United States could experience a slowdown in growth in the 4th quarter. The shutdown stems from a budget impasse between the White House and Congress over spending priorities, with negotiations yet to produce a breakthrough. Now, the British government says it will have full unredacted access to China's proposed plans for a massive and new embassy in London before making a final decision. The housing minister confirmed that the review will be thorough amid mounting security concerns from lawmakers in Britain and the United States. Critics have warned that the site could be used for espionage, increasing pressure on the government to block the project. A decision is expected by October 21st after delays caused by Beijing's reluctance to provide full architectural details. This comes at a politically sensitive time for Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government, which has faced criticism for allegedly downplaying security threats posed by China. Britain's domestic intelligence agency, the M15, also issued a rare public warning to the members of parliament that they are being targeted by foreign spies. China's planning consultancy had previously withheld all internally layout plans, but UK officials insist will review every detail before deciding. The proposed embassy would be the largest in Europe, located near the historic Tower of London. United Kingdom retail sales grew at a slow pace in September as consumers held back spending amid worries about the government's upcoming November budget. The British Retail Consortium and the KPMG reported that the total sales rose to 2.3% from a year earlier, down from 3.1% in August, while, like for all alike, sales slowed to 2%. Retailers blamed the weaker performance on unseasonably warm weather, which delayed purchases of high-value autumn goods such as coats and boots. The slowdown added to concerns that persistent inflation and potential tax hikes could weigh on household budgets and consumer confidence in the coming months. Analysts said the softer sales growth underscores fragile consumer sentiment as the economy faces pressure from high living costs and fiscal tightening. The retailers are now bracing for a cautious holiday shopping season, hoping that early discounts and promotional campaigns can revive spending momentum. Now, investor confidence in Germany rose in September, buoyed by expectations that new fiscal stimulus measures will help revive Europe's largest economy. The Z Institute's expectation index climbed to 39.3% from 37.3% in August, signaling renewed optimism among investors despite lingering economic weaknesses. The improvement follows Berlin's announcement of a €3 billion incentive package for zero-emission vehicle purchases running through 2029, aimed at stimulating industrial output and supporting the transition to clean mobility. However, the survey's measure of current conditions showed an unexpected decline, suggesting that underlying challenges persist in manufacturing and consumer demand. Analysts said the government's fiscal expansion could ease recession risk and stabilize investor sentiment ahead of next year's growth forecast. The latest data reflects cautious optimism that Germany's policy mix of green investment and targeted spending may gradually restore economic momentum. Now, Italy's government is planning to secure about €5 billion from domestic banks as part of its forthcoming budget law, in an effort to boost state revenue without destabilizing the financial sector. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's administration is currently in talks with lenders to agree on a balanced approach that would generate funds while limiting the strain on their balance sheets. According to people familiar with the discussion, officials are exploring different mechanisms to structure the contribution, aiming to ensure that more support the fiscal objectives without triggering financial market concerns. The proposal comes amid efforts to meet European Union deficit rules and sustain Italy's heavy public spending commitments. The planned contribution highlights the government's broader push to tap profitable industries for fiscal support as rising debt and slow economic growth challenge budget targets. Rome is expected to finalize the details of the measure before submitting its full budget plan to Parliament later this month. And now to sports. The Confederation of African Football, CAF, has confirmed that Morocco will host the African Playoff Tournament to determine the continent's final qualifier for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The high-stakes event scheduled for November 2025, featuring 4 teams battling for a place in the Intercontinental Playoffs, In a circular sent to a members association on Monday, CAF outlined the full format and the venues and dates for the mini tournament. The semi-final fixtures will be played on November 13, followed by the final on November 16, both in Morocco, which is also set to host the 2025 African Cup of Nations. The tournament will bring together the 4 best second-placed teams from the African qualifiers. The winner will advance to the intercontinental playoffs, where 6 teams from different continents will compete for the final spots at the expanded 48-team 2026 World Cup, jointly hosted by the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Now, Super Eagles coach Eric Chelle and captain William Troost-Ekong have expressed concern ahead of Tuesday's decisive 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifier against Benin Republic. The Godswill Akpabio International Stadium, Uyo, will be hosting the match. Speaking at a pre-match press conference on Monday, Chelle said the team is fully focused on securing maximum points in front of home fans, stressing that qualification for the World Cup remains the top priority of the team. He assured supporters that the players are mentally and physically ready to deliver a strong performance. Chelle added that while some pressure comes with the importance of the fixture, the Super Eagles are determined to rise to the occasion and make Nigerians proud. Troost-Ekong, who echoed his coach's optimism, said the team's spirit and unity would be key in overcoming the cheaters. The match is seen as a must-win for Nigeria's qualification hopes. Now that's a wrap on the news, but before we go, here's a recap of today's top stories. The presidency said it has raised a total upstream investment commitment in Nigeria's oil and gas sector to over $8 billion since inception. Now, the federal government renewed energy investments of commitment of $400 million to strengthen Nigeria's clean energy value chain. And the Central Bank of Libya authorizes the printing of $11 billion to ease persistent liquidity shortages. United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warns that ongoing economic shutdown hurts the United States economy. And in the world of sports, Confederation of African Football, CAF, has confirmed that Morocco will host the African Playoff Tournament to determine the continent's final qualifier for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Now, many thanks for watching. Do well to follow us on all our social media platforms at SOUQ News TV. I am Oyinpriye Krumale. Good afternoon to you.
Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a horsing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Marse Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles, symbols of strength and dignity. Our historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square, SOUQ Enlightenment.
Well, thank you very much indeed. My name is Stephen Kola Balogun. I happen to be a lawyer, and should I call myself a pseudo-politician? Not quite a politician, but I've served in government before, and I'm delighted to be here. Well, thank you very much. Well, yes, is it my family or the wider family? I mean, like I said, I'm the son of Chief Dr. Kolawole Balogun of blessed memory. Like I said, he was a former politician, a frontline politician. He was the General Secretary of the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons, later National Council of Nigerian Citizens. He was the General Secretary of that party for about 8 years. From there, he was appointed by SOUQ to become a federal minister. He was initially a federal minister without portfolio. Consequently, after that, he became acting minister for labor, social services, and then he became Nigeria's first federal minister for information in 1956. He held that portfolio to 1958. Thereafter, he resigned from government. He had disagreement with the party. And Tafawa Balewa felt that he was a useful politician that could be sent to Ghana. And he went to Ghana to find out what was. Ghana was a bit ahead of us in terms of politics at the time. I think it's fair to say they got independence just before us. And Tafawa Balewa wanted someone to understudy, to find out what we're doing. So he sent Kola Balogun there. Initially, he was commissioner, and later, when we gained independence in 1960, he became high commissioner. Shortly after that, when we became independent, he yearned to come home. He wanted to take part in the new political atmosphere at the time. He asked the Prime Minister to relieve him, to let him come back, and he did come back home. And immediately he took up the position of being chairman of the National Shipping Line. That was a position he held on to until the military struck in 1966. But even then, when the military did strike in 1966, he still continued. I think General Debayo of blessed memory invited him to join his cabinet, and he served as a commissioner for about 3 years or more. I think he was commissioner for health and was commissioner for education. Later, he also became chairman of the sketch group of companies as well. And that was about it. I think after his stint in government, he decided to go and do a PhD at the University of Ibadan. And then he went back into private legal practice. And then he started this agitation for the creation of Osun State. He and a few others set up the movement. He was the chairman of the movement. And then to the glory of God, in 1991, Osun State was created. And that's it.
Tell us about mommy.
Well, yes, my mother. Well, in those days, the women were not so much in the forefront, But my mother has been my bedrock. She stood by me, and she has backed me in most of the things I've set out to do, And she's still alive. She's 89 this year, and she's still doing well, and she's still
and your wife
going
and
strong.
The kids?
Yes, my children. Yes, I have 3 girls, 3 daughters. My oldest is 31. You know, she studied at King's College London. She did reasonably well. She got a 7th class upper. Proud of her. She's now curator today. And I have twin girls as well who are also in university now, that they haven't graduated yet. One of them is in Oxford University. She's studying history and politics. And the other is in Cambridge University. She's studying human, social, and political sciences. So, yeah. I did. I mean, my father, Chief Kolawole Balogun of blessed memory. Yes, he was in the first cabinet in the First Republic, the first ever cabinet Nigeria had, and he served as the Federal Minister of Information and Research. As a matter of fact, he happened to be Nigeria's first information minister. Later, T.O.S. Benson, of course, became the independent Nigeria's first information minister, but independent Nigeria. But Nigeria's first ever information minister happened to be Chief Kolawole Balogun of blessed memory. No, I didn't. I took an opposite route from my father. My father went into politics immediately after he finished his education, and then he now ventured into law a little bit later. I decided to look at things differently. I thought that after academics I should practice law a bit, and that's what I've been doing. But at some point, I think that was in about 2011, I was called upon to serve in the Osun State government as a commissioner, and I took up that opportunity, and I enjoyed myself. Well, I am in the sense that I'm 65 years old now, and I think it's fair to say that we belong to, well, I won't say the first set, but one of those who benefited from Nigerian education. I schooled here. I went to secondary school in the West. I went to the University of Ife. Went to the Nigerian Law School. I think it's fair to say that all the schools at that time were of high quality, produced top quality students who went on to make names for themselves, not just here in Nigeria, but also abroad. I think we still do that now, even though the standard of education has dropped. The sad thing about it is that Nigeria could have been a lot better in terms of the potential, because Nigeria does have a lot of potential. We do have very brilliant young men and women, you know, and I just think that if we had invested more in education, that we could have, the sky would have been the limit, actually. Well, my take on this is that it's the system of law itself. As a young lawyer, I experienced a few challenges myself, and I think one of the obvious challenges is the appeal structure. It's too easy to appeal against judgments. At the same time, when you file actions in court, there are no penalties for costs. In other words, I can file a frivolous action. I could insult you, as an example, and then you could sue me. And I say to myself, well, I'm going to eke it out. I'm going to take it. You're going to have to take me all the way to the Supreme Court. That doesn't make sense. That's not fair. On the other hand, I could also file a frivolous application against you. And then, filing a frivolous application, I could call you something you are not. I could defame you. And in so doing, you expect at least that once you prove your case, that I will be made to pay the penalties for filing frivolous applications. But that doesn't happen. And then, of course, the conditions of the judges. I mean, the judges are still writing longhand. They do trials, they sit there, they listen to witnesses, give evidence, and they have to write all these things down longhand. So there's so many challenges that has hampered the progress of law. And there hasn't hasn't been enough investment, I must say. Well, I agree with that, and I'm going to give an example as to how that I think we could possibly do that. Now, the Supreme Court hears everything. It's the final court in Nigeria, so they're going to hear issues related to criminal law, civil matters, constitutional matters, as you know, all these matters that's got to do with elections, so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, when we have an election cycle, the legal system slows down because the judges are hampered. They're too busy listening to the various appeals from the various states and the federal government to do with the elections. So as a consequence, the other matters to deal with shipping, banking, criminal law are put on the back burner. I think we need what you call a constitutional court, whereby which the judges in the Supreme Court are divided. So you have those judges whose responsibility it is entirely to deal with constitutional matters, and then you have another set whose duty will be to deal with shipping, banking, civil matters, criminal matters, and so on and so forth. So I believe it's high time Nigeria has a constitutional court to try and aid the Supreme Court with the workload they have, which is, quite frankly, quite a bit. Well, Nigerians, with respect, are very brilliant, very intelligent, and they are very aware. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a tailor, you're a driver, you're a lawyer, engineer, they are quite well informed. And the truth of the matter really is that this is the longest republic we've had. This republic started in 1999, and this is 2025, so 26 years. Nigeria's never had a republic this long. But the main flaw is the one you just mentioned. The fact that that constitution that was bequeathed to us by the military in 1999 was never really approved by the people. Now, that doesn't make sense, and that's unfair. In fairness, we ought to be able to look at the constitution, improve upon it, and put our own input into it. Now, there's a way around that, and I've always believed, many people oppose this, but I'm of the view that what Nigerians need to have is a referendum. Have a referendum to ask the Nigerian people whether they want to persist with the 1999 constitution, or do they want to drop a new one. If the answer to that question is yes, we want to drop a new constitution, then that puts paid to the 1999 constitution, and then you can now have a system, a constituent assembly, whatever the case may be, where people will sit around the table and fashion out a new constitution. If the people say no, that means they've indirectly approved the 1999 constitution, and then we continue with it. But what we can't do is continue having this debate, these arguments as to whether the 1999 constitution has been approved by Nigerians or not, because it has not been. So I think the way around that is to ask the Nigerian people through a referendum, asking them whether they want to persist with this constitution. If they say no, then we have a new one. If they say yes, we continue with the old one. And that ends the debate. Every system has its merits. Every system has its advantages and disadvantages. To some extent, the presidential system of government has an advantage. It has the advantage in the sense that it has brought government nearer to the people. So the people of Osun, from where I'm from, for instance, now, have their own state. Same thing can be said, it's been replicated across the country. However, the drawbacks, the disadvantage is the fact that it's extremely expensive. Now, look at Nigeria, for instance, now. We have 36 state governments. So that means we have 36 governments in Nigeria. If you add the government of Abuja, if you add the federal government, that's 38. Now, each one of these governments have some form of legislature, judiciary, an executive as well, local government, civil service. It's too expensive. Look, in America, where we borrowed this system from, the states came together to form a union. This is totally different. We are doing it the opposite way. So we've had a structure that we're now going back. So at the end of the day, many of the state governments are still dependent on the federal government. And as a consequence, the kind of progress we ought to be making, we're not quite making it. So I personally, and this is a personal view because others would disagree, I would prefer that we reduce the size of government by having some kind of regional structure. And I believe that that will reduce the burden of governments. And if we can reduce the burdens of government, we can use this money to do many other things. And I also think it will also improve standards as well. Not just standards of government or parliamentary standards or whatever the case may be, but there'll be less people involved in the political system. And that would help us a great deal. Well, I think it's fair to say that since 1999, we haven't had any new state creation. I know there's been agitation for the creation of states, but there hasn't been any. The process for creating a state is quite cumbersome. It's not easy. I think it's in Section 8 and 9 of the Constitution. I don't think it's something we should be looking at. I think, like I said to you earlier, I think we should be trying to reduce the number of states, and I think some kind of regional structure whereby which we can monitor better what's going on rather than having more states. So I personally would not encourage the creation of more states, no. In the 1950s, we had 3 regions, if I'm correct. Those regions were the West, the East, and the North. We had the colony of Lagos, but if I'm right, I think it was the MacPherson Constitution, I think it is, I'm not too sure, that now put Lagos under the Western region. Now, when Lagos was placed under the Western region, lots of people were not happy about that. I remember my father was in the NCNC. The NCNC people were not particularly pleased, neither were the NPC, because they felt that Lagos belonged to everybody. Like you said, lots of people from different walks of life, different tribes, different backgrounds, and all schooled. I mean, Zik schooled in Lagos. He went to MBHS. So it was the issue was sent to London to arbitrate. I think it was Oliver Littleton that arbitrated over the matter. And it was decided that Lagos should stand on its own, that Lagos should not be merged with any of the regions. And that was how Lagos was able to free itself from the shackles of the Western region. It's fair to say that the position of the NCNC was actually argued in London by my father. That's why I'm quite familiar with this. But talking about Lagos, when the military, after that, we had what you called a minister for Lagos. I think there was Ribadu, and I think there was one other person, but I think it was Yaradua, not the same Yaradua, but his father. And then later after that, when the military struck, they created the state of Lagos. So the issue of giving Lagos special status has more or less been taken over by events. Lagos is a state, and as a state, it's still home to different people with different backgrounds, from different tribes, and it's thriving. I think it's fair to say that Lagos is probably the most prosperous state in the country, and it's just a question of its continuing with good governance and improving the strides they have made. Once again, let's go back to the past. We had what we used to call the House of Chiefs, wasn't it? And in those House of Chiefs, many of the members of the House of Chiefs were people, were traditional rulers, chiefs from different backgrounds, and they had a say in the running of the affairs of state. It's like it was more or less akin to the House of Lords. So it wasn't necessarily the chamber whereby which the activities of day-to-day governance took place, but they could always refer issues to them. And I think that if we change our structure of governance, and if, that's a big if, then yes, we can have something like that. We can have a second chamber, which is more or less advisory in nature, similar to the House of Lords, whereby which we will have obas and chiefs and people of influence who will be able to advise government from day to day from the experiences and the way forward, but not necessarily binding. I think that's important. Their decisions won't necessarily be binding on us, but at least they'll be able to share their views and experiences with the people. That's a big issue. I was commissioner for youth in Osun about 10 years ago under Rauf Aregbesola, and it was an issue we took quite seriously. In Osun State, we had quite a number of youths who are unemployed, and the governor thought, what can I possibly do to give them something to do, to keep them employed? So he created what we call the Osun State Youth Empowerment Scheme. Now, under the State Youth Empowerment Scheme, unemployed youths were given particular tasks in states. Help us sweep the roads. Some were part-time lecturers. Some were doing all sorts of things. They were given a stipend. It wasn't a full-blown salary. Well, the salary, although the stipend was enough to keep them to be able to buy things, to be able to buy themselves drinks and food, and kept them occupied until they could find themselves a job. And I think the federal government could follow that kind of scheme, set up a youth empowerment scheme whereby which unemployed youths are given things to do. There's so many things that need to be done in Nigeria. You know, there's so many gaps whereby which the youths can help do that. In the interim, while they find themselves something more gainful or something more permanent. So it's a question, it's for government to do. It's for government to think of a way of helping out the youths. And of course, there should be partnerships, a partnership between the government and private enterprise to try and encourage them to take on more of our youths, and not necessarily those who have schooled abroad, who they think are probably the best in terms of employment. No, we have many here who can do a good job as well. Sustaining democracy is about discipline. It's about the people being disciplined. It's about those who rule us being disciplined. I started out by telling you that this is the longest government we've had. It's the longest republic we've had. We've had democracy now since 1999, 26 years. If you go back to the days of independence, there's been no republic that has been this long. So it shows that the people have embraced democracy. They've come to it's part of us now. They've come to enjoy it. Yes, there are hiccups in terms of the fact that we could do a lot better in terms of how we implement things. But in terms of the people yearning for democracy and imbibing it, I think we've done very well. And what we just need to do is just to try and perfect it. One of the ways, like I said much earlier, is to perhaps take a second look at the Constitution, see where areas where we can improve, and try and make people happy, and at the same time reduce the cost of governance. But I don't think democracy is going anywhere. I think it's here to stay.
Hospitality is a very interesting and dynamic industry. Hospitality industry, very interesting and dynamic. And as we know, we have global best practices, that are acceptable. It's just like norms that are acceptable in the industry. So when you talk about global best practices, it encompasses a lot of things, a lot of dimension, in terms of technology, in terms of service delivery, in terms of training and retraining of staff, even the recruitment, onboarding of staff. There's so many things involved when you talk about global best practices. Well, let me just say the main challenge we have in this climb is orientation, education. In this climb, many people go into the hospitality business without much information about what they are about to go into. You see, the problem with us in this climb is education. You see, many of our hotel owners are not properly educated before going into the business. I've had series of experiences on the field where some people must have wasted fortune and they will now realize that they need consultants. And by that time, let me say it may be late already. Before you go into any business, get to understand, how it works. The hotel business is a very complex business. Like globally, the trend is making sure your guests' expectations are exceeded. And so many, the technology is employed in making sure this is possible. You won't believe that up to now, we still have some of our local brands. In fact, most of our local brands have not even adopted the PMS. PMS is property management software, where you right from the guest arrival, if I arrive from online, by the time you are checking online to know about the hotel, their products and all that, right from online to when you get to the front desk and throughout all your experiences, all these things are captured by a software, makes the experience so robust and all that. Up to now, many of our local brands still find it difficult to adopt this PMS. To them, it's expensive. To them, they don't see any reason for it. And this is what makes, it improves guest experiences. It makes you satisfy your guests. You even exceed their expectations. Makes just at a point, just on the touch of a button, things are already happening. In the Western world, they're already going into, AI, right from CRM, customer relations management, service, CRS, and all that. They are already exploring using AI and all that. Here we are still on biro and paper. How do you compare the brands? The local brands are built around the owners. The owner, tells you either he is knowledgeable or not about the business. He runs it like a one-man business. And at the demise of the owner, the business dies. Unlike the global brands. The owners of Marriott are long gone. And Marriott keeps multiplying all over the globe. Right now, they have about more than 1.5 million properties all over the world. They have acquired Sheraton here in Lagos, even 4 Point by Sheraton. You see them expanding. What is the secret? It's all about process, system. When there's no process, there's no system, then you are planning to fail. And it's a common saying that when you don't plan, you're already planning to fail. When there's no planning, many of them go into the business without proper feasibility studies. You know, a young man came in from diaspora, was not just last year, to invest in this same hospitality business, set up a lounge on the island. You won't believe it. 6 months, 100 million was gone. And he had to pack up and return back again. So what is happening? Why is it that the global brands are thriving and our own brands are not thriving? Meanwhile, we should even have some advantages over the global brands because it is natural. We are naturally hospitable. It is our nature in Africa. You know, hospitality, Africa is hospitality, hospitality is Africa. You know, so all we need to do is to get the formal training and convert our virtue, hospitality virtue, into in a professional way and run the business professionally. Well, actually, it's not by the quality. We still have some boutique hotels, you know, that are doing very well in the country. They are already trying as much as possible to, you know, follow the global best practices. You know, it's not until your hotel is so massive and big before you can exceed your guest satisfaction, you know. No. Even if it's just 7 rooms, you can still have a brand that can be reckoned with. You know, a brand is not until it's massive before you can say you have a brand. You can have a brand even in a small hotel. You can create a brand. So it's not about of course, we have some hotels that takes care of the middle class and they are doing it perfectly well. But what I'm just saying is majority of them are not doing it well because they have refused to adopt the tech. They have refused, you know, to follow, you know, good processes. They don't care about training. As far as they are concerned, the staff are just slaves. They use them and dump them. You know, they believe that if they don't do well, fire them, hire another person. You know, your business will be going in circles. You have to create a kind of linear graph, not the one that will just go up and fall down again. You know, try, you know, to train your staff. Like I always tell people, if you don't train them, don't blame them. Because, I mean, you can't imagine spending billions of naira to erect a structure in the name of a hotel, and you cannot even onboard your staff properly. Most of them, they just employ anyhow, put their relatives, and they start running. There is no onboarding program, no vision, no mission, no core values, no SOPs, and and as far as they're concerned, they are running a business. You know, when the owner is not around, nothing can happen, and the guests are complaining. Why is it that you don't have these things in stock? You cannot tell them that our MD is not around, that's why he has not released money. That should be budget. You run such businesses on budget. If he has to release money, he releases the money, you know, as at when the budget is ready and the budget is funded. So the business runs on autopilot. It doesn't have to be there. But most of these local brands, they want to be there to see everything, and it's not possible. It's not possible. Or else, like I said, at the demise of the owner, the business dies. What is the secret behind the companies like Coca-Cola, you know, and all the Marriotts of this world, the Sheraton, etc.? What's the secret? It's because they have process and they have a system. So once there is no process, you're just wasting your time. So there's, and like I always say, a brand is built. It does not come by accident. There has to be intention. It has to be deliberate. You have to be deliberate about building a brand. Well, the truth is, staff will always leave where they are not well treated. One thing is to say you are training. Another thing is the environment conducive for them? They are not animals. If they are well treated, they will stay. They receive training. They see a future in the organization. I mean, there's nothing like staff handbook. You don't even know your rights. You don't know your privileges. You know, you don't know where the company's right stops and where yours starts. You don't know whether you are entitled to leave or not. In fact, that one is in the hotels. In our climb here, there is nothing like leave. You know, you treat them anyhow. Why will they stay? But go and check out those local brands that have adopted these global best practices. Their staff are not going because they see a future. And the issue of trust, you know, you're talking about trust. It's not peculiar with the local brands. If money can be stolen in the local brands, it can be stolen in the international brands. But the difference is the process. You see, like most of our clients, when we try to that we consult for, when we take over, I always tell them, look, let's put a system in place. Increase their salaries. Let their salaries be enough. Then those that were there with the wrong intention, by the time the systems are in place, they will leave because they know they cannot steal. Recently, in one of the hotels I consult for, somewhere in Ogun State, we recruited the maintenance officer, and they overheard him talking on phone that, it's like there are no lapses here. Barely 7 days. He was already looking for, you know, lapses to explore, and that he has to leave. You won't believe, within a week, he has already given us a notice that he's resigning. Why? Because there's a system in place. Use this PMS we are talking about. Property management software. It has different modules. You have the front desk module, you have the restaurant and bar modules, you have the accounting module, the inventory module, you know, different modules, and they all work together. It's a central thing. Even the HR module, whereby you onboard your staff on the software. Right on the software, you know whether their documents are complete or not. Those that are 80% complete, what are the outstanding documents, the guarantors, and all those things. But most of these people, when you tell them, it's alien to them. They don't believe it's workable here. All there is, and another thing, another dimension, another thing I noticed about our local owners is, how much was your sales yesterday? The next thing is he has taken everything. He's going to party. No future. The business has no future. And when the employees see you spend like that, see you behave like that, you are also tempting them to start behaving like that, to go into the money if they have the opportunity to, because they don't have a future in that business. They know their future is not guaranteed. Tomorrow the business might fold up because of the recklessness of the owner. You're building a business. Allow it to grow. Nurture it. Let it grow. Let it grow. Let me break it down. Like when I say the front desk module, the module has a lot of features whereby when your guest walks in, or either online, you can book online, and it will reflect right there. You can book right from London. You go to the website, the hotel's website, and right from the comfort of your bedroom, you are seeing the different categories of rooms, just as if you are already in the hotel. And you are seeing the attached rack rates. And you make a pick. And as you pick, you have the option of payment. And as you make the payment, you reserve the date and a future date, and you make the payment. As soon as you make the payment, it reflects right in the hotel on the front desk. For example, you picked room 107, and somebody else walks into the front desk and says, I want room 107. Sorry, it will show that it's no more available, even though you didn't see the guests, but it's been paid for online. Can't you see it makes life easy? It increases, improves the guest experiences. It makes your potential guests or your guests happy. Makes things easy for them. So you can achieve that online. You can also achieve it by walking into the front desk, and you can make a reservation. All you need to do is check the rooms. You don't even need to go around and looking at the rooms. It's displayed for you at the front desk. You have it on the screen. You see the different categories of room. You make a pick, and you make payment. Now, when you make payment, a receipt is generated immediately. Another thing is, that's what you call door integration. When you're talking about fraud, you integrate your door. That's the card system, not the iron key, the card system. You integrate it with your software in such a way that once a card is activated, because once payment is made, the card is activated automatically. The owner already gets an alert. In some software, it's called MRS, Management Report System, that a room has been sold. Either you are there or not. It's as clear, as simple as that. You don't need to come, and some owners will come and sit down at the reception to see what is happening. No, you don't even need a camera. Everything is automated. No room can be opened. You can't access any room without the card being activated. And the card cannot be activated except payment is made. It's only the payment that activates the card. Can you see that control? So now another question comes. What about when you want to clean the room? How do you get the card? That's what you call, MasterCard, or floor card and all that, depending. Now, personally, I advise my clients, you don't activate a MasterCard to work indefinitely, to work anytime, anyhow. We have hours of cleaning. So your MasterCard is activated to work. For example, the checkout time is 12 o'clock. So you activate it in such a way that it's only active between 12 and certain maybe 3 o'clock or so. Every daily. Once it is 3, you cannot access the room with the MasterCard again. You can see the tech we are talking about. So you can't access any room again. And again, we have energy saving lights, whereby it's only that same card that can power the lights and the TV and the AC in the room. No guest wants to check into a room without the AC working, without the TV working. So it's only that same card that can power the systems. So you won't check me in by 1 o'clock because you have access to MasterCard. And by 3 or 4, once your card is no more active, I'm in darkness. You know? And again, you can always generate a report from the front desk that will tell you how many times, you know, the kind of permit, the entrance, whether the room was opened with the MasterCard or it was opened, you know, with a guest card. Right from the report you see. And when you go to the report and you see that MasterCard open at this time, you say, what happened? Why? Who was the person that accessed the room? So you don't need to be there. A particular client of mine was trying to lease out his hotel, which I always strongly advise against, on the island because he was relocating to Dubai, United Arab Emirates, you know. So I advised him against it. Why do you want to? I've told you to install a PMS since. This will give you some level of comfort because his main reason is that I'm here, right under my nose. They are still stealing. When I leave, what will happen? You don't need to. And thank God he was able to take the advice. We installed the PMS and he saw the difference. Don't, you know, don't underestimate your guests. Even forget the color. They may be black, but they are well traveled. They've been to America, they've been to Europe, they've been to, you know, Dubai. They've lodged in the best hotels in the world, and they know what good service is. So don't think you can just give them any kind of service anyhow. They have an expectation. For every, you know, rack rate, for every money paid, there is a value, an expected value attached to it. Why is it that you see some guests, they'll lodge in 5-star hotels, they pay as much as 1 million naira, 700,000, 500,000 a night, and when they wake up in the morning, because of the kind of treatment, when they are checking out, you still see them giving out tips. They are happy. Meanwhile, this same set will go to some local brands, maybe as a result of lack of availability of such class of hotel in their village or in some, I mean, they have a function somewhere, and they pay just 30,000 naira, and you see them complaining and quarreling and getting angry, agitated, you know. Why? Because of the service. 30,000 has a value, an expected value. Same thing with 500,000 naira. If he had paid 500,000 naira in a 5-star hotel and he didn't get the attached value, he will complain. But he paid 30,000 and he could not even sleep at night, mosquito, all through the night. The AC is not working. Why? Because there is no process, no system. All these ACs and all these things, they all have, you have a kind of maintenance worksheet, maintenance plan. It does not have to break down before you start repairing it. You know, you maintain them. When the generator has worked for so number of hours, it must be serviced. How often do we check all these things in our local brands? Because there is even no system, no SOP, nothing in place. You just open and start running. It's not done anywhere. I gave an example of someone who brought in 100 million naira and the whole thing disappeared. You know, let me say, what we should know is that money is inflammable. The whole thing went in flames. That's how I will put it, within 6 months. Why? Because there was no due process. There was no planning. He didn't understand what he was coming to do. He just dabbled into it. You know, in my book, which I'll be launching soon in my event coming up. I call it ABC of creating a great hospitality brand, you know. Simple, you know, steps of creating a brand, you know. I mean, I made reference to such owners as accidental owners, you know. You just inherited a property, or you felt, okay, what is moving now? What can we do? They say hotel is bringing in money, jackpot. Many people have gone into it and they've gotten their fingers burnt. So I will advise investors, if you want to invest, do proper feasibility study. Do proper feasibility study. Well, let me give you an example, a practical example. One of my clients started a 23-rooms hotel in Delta, you know, and according to him, it's almost 3-4 years now. According to him, he spent about 400 million naira. He's smiling today. Right now, there is no day that he does not have a turnover. You can do something smaller, even with 100 million, you know. Yes, it depends. I just gave a practical example. I know of people that have just 7 rooms, and they are making their money every day because they've done, their due diligence. No, definitely, you know, it will reflect on your pricing. And once, like I always tell people, is value for value. I can't be forced to sell my room 10,000 naira because my neighbor is selling for 10,000 naira. You know, I can sell mine for 40,000 naira and still be fully booked. While the one that is selling for 10,000 naira is not even attracting any guests. Why? Because the 10,000 naira will try to say, okay, when it is 12, we turn off the gen because we want to conserve energy. We don't have money to buy diesel and all that. Start rationing. No guests will feel comfortable. You know, these guests, even in their personal homes, they enjoy 24 hours light. They enjoy themselves. Then you now come, you know, to a hotel where you should relax and be able to think properly. And they are telling you they are turning off the gen because they don't want to sell the room high. I'll tell my clients, sell it high, but create the value. When the value is there, make sure you recover your costs. You have to impute all these things, you know, into your costing. Many of them don't even believe there is need for a revenue manager. Apart from the normal manager, you have a revenue manager. You know, you have cost accountants, you know, apart from the main accountant, people that are in charge of costing. You're selling a plate of food for 7,000 naira. What is the cost? Many of them don't know. And like I said, most of this software takes care of all these things. You know, the recipes are there in the software, you know, all programmed. So when you have sold a plate of rice, you already know how much is your profit on it. It comes to that. So we have to be very analytical. Yeah, majorly it's let me say government policies. It affects, you know, like in Lagos State now, we talk of consumption tax. Then the federal will still come and say you should pay VAT. It is repetition. Consumption tax is 5%. Then the federal government is asking for 7.5. Is that not 12.5? How? How do you survive? You understand? So these are challenges, and that's one of the reasons, you know, for the vision for my program, which will be coming up in September, you know. It's called Hotel Owners Dinner Outreach. You know, it sort of creates an environment where you have the policymakers, You have the stakeholders, the investors, the owners of hotel, the practitioners, all come together under one roof. Then we dialogue, look at the investment climb, look at the challenges, we rub minds together, and we come up with solutions, possible solutions, Like you cannot be up there churning out rules. You are so far from the players. You don't even know, you can't feel them. You don't know what they are going through. A client of mine, the road to his hotel is terrible, very terrible. And it's hardly having guests. And this government arm will come and pay consumption tax. Another will pay advert, another will pay different kinds of local government will come and ask for their own, So like this year's edition, we are bringing in the number one taxman in the state, for example, will be we call it investment roundtable. Will be in the panel. We have a representative of the international brand. That's the owners of Marriott Hotel in GRA, Ikeja. He'll be in the panel too. And we have the permanent secretary, tourism, who will be in the panel. So we'll bring them together. Then we have consultants, practitioners of over 40 years in the industry in that same panel. That's the president of AFCON. AFCON is Association of Tourism and Hospitality Consultants in Nigeria. He'll be in the panel. All of them. So let us discuss. Let's feel each other's pain. Let us understand. The government, tell us why you are taxing us like this and all that. So that's one challenge. Another one is power. Of course, there's nothing we can do about that. It's a national thing, and until it is solved nationally, we'll keep generating our own. While we always advise that, owners should look at, solar, which is environmental friendly. That's even the way, hospitality is going, We talk about sustainability, in hospitality, social, economic, and environmental. Those are other issues again, another topic entirely, maybe for another day. We should just keep it professional. Whatever you are doing, keep it professional. You're building a brand. Always remember that a brand is a promise. Make sure you always keep it. A brand is an experience. Always improve the experience. A brand is a reputation. Maintain it.
Bank was totally gone, so there was nothing to say they had. But we still approached them and said we would like to take over this bank. The journey since 1997 has been one thing or the other, and I'm happy that many years down the line we look back and we're happy that we're audacious and bold to make them move at the time. That's why today in UBA, perseverance resilience is a core virtue, a core attribute, a core value of ours, because we apply that early on in this journey. So that's how it all started.
Leadership, according to Tom Peters, entails vision, enthusiasm, trust, verve, passion, and consistency. If there's one man who graciously combines these virtues, the name Tony Elumelu comes to mind.
They say that success to a large extent is dependent on being at the right place at the right time. I say to people, my elder brother, who is 7 years older than me, he doesn't have gray hair. I have gray hair. My gray hair started from the merger, because making it work, serving your customers, making sure that everyone in the universe or the institution, which was we have 428 branches at the time, that it was same level of service across board. Customers of standard trust bank that were used to a certain level of service delivery, you will not want them to come to the new institution and have a drop.
From the womb of time, Tony Elumelu has been an embodiment of nobility and excellence. He remains one of the flying eagles and shining heads of the banking industry. The life and times of Tony is an inspiring tale. He is one Nigeria who is unmoved by material wealth and self-aggrandizement. Tony's noble qualities were on from his humble background. Growing up with 4 siblings in Jos Plateau State, the cowboy of the banking industry who hails from Anocha North local government area of Delta State, believed in the democratization of law combined with hard work. He began his career as a copier salesman. The Ambrose Ali University graduate of economics also bagged a master's degree in economics from the University of Lagos. In 2019, he received an honorary Doctor of Business degree from Bayero University, Kano.
Going to university, I just thought I wanted to be a businessman because my mom's brother, my mom and his brother were just 2 of them. So my uncle was a businessman, in Nigeria, and was quite successful at the time. And I was influenced. I thought he was very rich, and also I wanted to be a businessman, but not knowing whether just a businessman, you know what I mean? Because he was described then as a businessman. And but in the university, that was why I read economics, just to see. But in university, I got more enlightened because I knew more how things operated. And first degree, I was saying I just wanted a good job that would give me the start. But when I came to do my master's at Unilag, being in urban or Unilag, a lot happening at the time. And that was the era of new generation banks, a lot happening. Our friends, in banking, our friends, some got jobs in some banks. And so that's all of us who were doing masters at the time. I did masters in economics. Who were doing masters at the time, we just became interested and fascinated. We were interested in working in a bank. New generation bank, not old generation bank, not. And so that was how it all started. And we started applying for jobs in our banks. And I got, yes, at the master's level, it was clear I wanted to work in a bank. And yes, that was started. As in then, Santana was a posh guy. So they oppressed us in school, I must say. And then we too wanted to become the big boys in future with the blue shoes, suspenders, white shirt, dark suits, etc.
The growth and development of any institution is determined by the quality of its leadership. For Tony Elumelu, his sterling performance and leadership scorecard in the banking industry remains a reference point. He rose quickly to become the youngest bank branch manager at Allstate Trust Bank at the age of 36. He formed a coalition to acquire a distressed financial institution, Crystal Bank, and became its CEO, an action that earned him and his circle of peers the nickname the cowboys of banking.
In 1997, some of us came together and acquired the distressed financial institution. We acquired this financial institution, we turned it around, we set targets for ourselves, strategic plans, like targets, we have first year strategic intent, we want to make it a viable financial services company. Second year intent, we want to become a leading financial services group on the continent. And third financial intent, strategic intent to become a player in the global financial arena. As we all know, there's so much private global capital seeking the right investment destination. All it takes is for a leadership to show that this country is set for business and people come there. We want to move into an economy where they can invest freely as well as move their monies out when it comes for time for dividend and remittances and repatriation of a dividend. So I will continue to invest because of the signal that we see in the market, because of certain fundamentals that are right.
He audaciously led the largest merger in Africa between United Bank of Africa and Standard Trust Bank. Tony's fancy for red tie remains emblem of his appearance. He retired as CEO of United Bank for Africa in 2010. He is presently the chairman of S Holdings, the United Bank for Africa, Transcorp, and founder of the Tony Elumelu Foundation.
I can't express how excited I am in words to be here and to be selected among the 1,000.
It's the opportunity for me to realize my dreams. So I go into business and start to make my way.
It challenges you to do things you never thought you could do.
Maybe if you'd have gone to a private school or an MBA, you must have paid a lot to get this kind of, enlightenment.
Ça me fait plaisir de voir des frères et sœurs qui veulent se rencontrer, se connaître, les partager et créer un réseau, peut-être le plus grand réseau africain.
Venho de Cabo Verde.
Je suis tunisien.
Je viens de la République du Bénin.
I'm from Edo State, Nigeria.
I'm from Ghana.
Zimbabwe.
Sudan.
From Rwanda. Gabon.
Uganda.
Senegal.
Niger.
I'm from the Gambia.
Welcome and thank you for coming to Lagos. I'd like to start by congratulating all of you. You have done well. Most entrepreneurs are creative people. They have creative mindset. They're innovative. Those who dare to dream and who dare to innovate in Africa should have the opportunity to prove their innovation. And that is why we have $10,000 for these 10,000 Africans to help prove their concept and prepare them for bigger scale financial support. We don't give because we see it as a moral burden to just give charity. But we want to give people because we want to uplift them. We want them to be self-reliant. We want them to be fishermen. We want them to do what we are doing. We want them to prosper in life, become successful.
Tony made a tremendous contribution to giving back to the society. His selfless efforts and huge investment into humanity through the Tony Elumelu Foundation is widely adjured as the leading philanthropy empowering a new generation of African entrepreneurs, driving poverty eradication, catalyzing job creation across all 54 African countries, and increasing women economic empowerment. Since the launch of the entrepreneurship program in 2015, the foundation has trained over 1.5 million young Africans on its digital hub. Tony, the Nigerian economist, entrepreneur, and philanthropist, holds the Nigerian National Honors, the Commander of the Order of Nigeria, CON, a member of the Order of the Federal Republic, MFR. He has been responsible for creating business that are critical to Africa's economic development. He is a proponent of Africa capitalism, an economic philosophy which advocates for the private sector's commitment to Africa's development through long-term investment in strategic sectors of the economy that drive economic prosperity and social wealth award. He was awarded the Daily Times the Nigerian Man of the Year in 2016. He was honored with the National Productivity Order of Merit Award in 2019. He is also on the list of Time magazine's 100 most influential people of 2020. On October 11, 2022, Elumelu received the National Honor of Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Tony, as a staunch professional and chairman of Foremost Bank, may understandably runs a busy daily schedule like that of a bee, but he balances the equation with creating time for sports. His love for lawn tennis and football stands undeniable.
My good workout memories, I think I would say that I like to jump on the sports. I love yoga, as you said. Yeah. But these days I'm trying to get in the group of planking.
Tony is not just a champion in the banking hall. He equally balances the equation when it comes to family life.
For me, as a family man, though, I try to make sure I balance things. I try to make sure my family side did not suffer. In that process, I was also growing a family, having my kids and co. So, but everything came together.
Tony is happily married to Awele Vivian Elumelu, who is the chairperson of Harvey Medical Practice Limited. Vivian also oversees the healthcare investment of Heirs Holdings. She holds a Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery degree from the University of Benin. The marriage was consummated in 1993 and blessed with 7 children. According to Forbes' list, Tony is among the top 10 richest entrepreneurs in Nigeria with a net worth estimated at $1 billion.
We don't just preach. We don't just theorize, we practice.
Tony has stooped to conquer not just in the banking industry, but in life. The strides of this living legend, popularly referred to as the Lion of Africa's financial industry, remains iconic.
So entrepreneurs who are listening, quick one, short one, straight to the point. Entrepreneurship is a long-term journey. Stop seeing it as a short-term goal. Long-term journey. Great companies, great and accomplished entrepreneurs did not make it in 1 year. They didn't make it in 3 years. It's a long-term journey. So moving, dare to dream, implement your dream, and stay focused.